Welcome back to Elevated Voices, where we explore leadership not just as a role, but as a responsibility to the people around us. I'm Dr. Amin Sanaia, joined by my people, Mr. Weese and Professor Juan Santana.
Hey,
How's
good
it
evening, everybody. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I hope that this weather that we're having is definitely is very uncertainly. So let's see how the weather progress as we jump into spring. But glad to be here with two of my most favorite people. There's another one, but he can't make it today, but I'm sure he'll be listening later, we miss you.
Yeah, happy shout out, happy belated birthday shout out to Tanner Thorpe. So, hello everybody. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoy this as much as we do.
Well, let's roll. Today, we're talking about something every leader experiences: uncertainty. And I don't think it just it's specifically for leaders. I think it's for everyone because at times in our life we face these uncertain times, challenges. For organizations, um, markets shift. They have to evolve, technology changes, and as we know, AI taking over. The technology is moving faster than we expected. And sometimes the path forward is not perfectly clear. And moments like this, leaders often feel pressure to have all the answers. I know each and one of us have had those moments. But the truth is, great leadership in uncertain times is about stability. People look to us as leaders for steadiness, they look to us for clarity, and most importantly, for confidence, that knowing that things are not settled, but there is someone at the helm that has the confidence in themselves and in others to get through it. And those are the things that we're gonna discuss in this episode. So the first question that I want to pose to us is, why do you think uncertainty creates so much pressure for leaders specifically?
Well, because I believe it creates this panic motion within the team, right? When the team doesn't know which direction they're heading or what's going on, especially in the market that we're at today, and we had different phases in our career where the market was kind of unstable, and you don't know from day to day what was going to happen. So yeah, everybody's looking up to someone, and they're looking up to the person on top, the person who's leading, for answers. And if you don't have all the answers, what do you do? Now, in my experience, what I've done with my team is being transparent, sitting down with the team and explaining, listen, I don't know what's going on, to be honest. You know, we'll be here tomorrow or we'll be here forever. I'm not sure, but, we got to ride this together. And, we ride the wave together.
Yeah. Tad, what would you like to add on there? There's something that I want to go back to that Juan said, but I want to make sure we get your thoughts first.
Well, I mean, he hit on it exactly. You want a leader that is not just going to react to everything.
Hmm.
Through experience and clarity, there's this guy that came up with this thing. It's called crave. And if you're communicating and you're authentic and you're vulnerable and you're letting people know, so listen, I don't have all the answers, but we're going to weather this together. And while things are going to come at us sideways, we're just going to stay the course, mind the process, and then make small changes that we need to instead of significant course corrections just because the lightning struck next to the boat.
Yeah, that those are great comments. Uh, and one of the things that for me that I experienced, especially at the beginning, as a leader, right, when I was a young leader, I felt this incredible pressure because I felt I was responsible for all the outcomes, for everything, right? And you're a young leader and you want to make a name for yourself, right? So you put at least for me, I put on so much burden that anything went wrong, it really um took, it really absorbed me for days, sometimes weeks, um because you want to make a name for yourself, but you don't want to be seen as the person that can't do it. And that's hard. And I think a lot of young leaders go through something similar where you're trying to find yourself, uh, but you put on so much pressure that you kind of forget who you are and what took you to that position in the first place. So that pressure uh, that we put on ourselves, it shows up in different ways. It shows up in not being confident, not being seen as confident, right? It shows up in the way where now our team, feel not comfortable coming to us because, oh, what am I going to run into? How is he going to treat me today? What is he going to say? Uh, so I mean that was hard, and I think that's where I wanted to go back to what that Juan had mentioned. Uh, what do you guys think about that?
Oh, without question, stability in a leader is extremely important, especially in uncertain times. And if you have somebody that lacks the emotional intelligence and the self-awareness to recognize that they're getting caught up in the fear of things that they can't control, then they're going to react poorly, and that's going to reflect down through the organization.
Yeah, but not having all the answers is to me it's okay. You're not supposed to have all the answers. Uh, but you can't let that be the driver, right? Right? You got to remember that you got to where you got not because of you, but all the people around you. This is not a journey that you take by yourself.
Yes.
This journey came along with a number of people that help you along the line to get to where you are. Nothing is accomplished by yourself. So as long as you remember that this journey that you took, it wasn't just you. I'm quite sure that all of us can go back and think of all those people that help us to get to where we are now today. Uh, and we need to be grateful for that.
Absolutely. I mean, those are big words. Young leaders, you better replay that what Professor Santana just said because it is very true. Uh, as a leader, and when you're working in an organization with other people, it's never about yourself. If you think that everything is because of you, because you did it, then you're number one, you probably should not be in the leadership position because you have no one following you at that point. But also because it is about everyone, and we have to be thankful. I mean, I'm very thankful for having a great mentor and at the beginning of my career as a healthcare administrator. Uh, if I didn't have that, I'm not sure I would have made it as far as I did. But I was blessed to have that. I was blessed to have people that would call me on my stuff, man. And that's something that me and my wife talk about all the time because she brings it. She calls me on my stuff. But I need that. Like we need that. We need people that are going to keep us grounded. Not in a bad way, but in a way where like, hey, this is not kosher. Maybe you shouldn't do things that way. And that is so big for us. And being able to have the moment to self-reflect and say, hey, you know what, you're right.
So there's something that I don't know if this is an original Tad thought or saying, but I've been relaying to some of the people that work for me. I'm saying, listen, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just asking the next time you try to walk on water, don't drown. And
I like
because
that.
we're all going to make mistakes, and
Yes.
I will support you and I will give you grace. I ask that you try to support me and offer me a little bit of grace as well, because I don't have all the answers, and I'm not afraid to admit that I don't have them, and I'm not always the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, yeah, I like the same way. I mean, I encourage the young people that I'm working with to take decision and not be afraid to make decision. And yeah, I made mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. Uh, but we need to own our mistake, and we need to then remedy that mistake after we notice that we made a mistake. It's part of the journey.
Absolutely. So in thinking of what we just discussed, our brains are naturally wired to seek certainty, right?
Oh,
When uncertainty increases, our stress responses activates. Our amygdala gets hijacked. That's why leadership calm and clarity become so important. It helps us to be able to regulate that emotional environment so that we can be better for everyone.
Yeah, but when we're under a lot of pressure, we tend not to think as much as when we're not in so much pressure. And even last night, I was working late. It was 12:30, and I sent an email that says I need this to be executed by the morning. I I get into the office morning. I ask, so where are we? What are you talking about? I sent you the information. Last night I needed this to be executed because we needed it first thing in the morning. I said, like, oh, then where did you send it? And, I got to check my other email. Let me see. And then I go back to my outbox. I said, oh, crap. I sent it to the wrong person. So I own to it and I apologize. I said, I'm sorry. My apologies. I sent it to the wrong person. My apologies. But, I'm going to forward to you, and if we could execute this now, I'd be very grateful.
or if you didn't send it at all and it's still
Yeah.
sitting in the drafts. I've done that a few times. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm quite sure the other person is still confused, trying to figure out what he wants me to execute.
Right.
Looking through all the inboxes. Like, I don't see it.
What do you mean you
But
didn't get that?
but this is what happens, right? We push ourselves so much, and especially, putting in the long late hours, late night, we will make mistakes because your brain is not as active, at 12:30 at night than it is 8 o'clock in the morning after your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So, it's mistake will be made. So we need to be able to slow down a little bit too.
Mhm.
I know it's the sign there that says, right, your certainty, right? When we have that, we switch gear, and it's natural to switch gear, trouble ahead, right? So we switch gear, yeah, we downshift and okay, we got to go full speed because we need to address this.
I like that. I like that. Let's go into I wanted us to touch upon leadership in real moments. So we have the three of us have diverse backgrounds. Me and Tad a little bit more similar because of the industry, but Tad because of his role and my role, it's a little bit different. So I want us to talk about really, can you recall a time when uncertainty was high and a leader's presence or communication made a real difference for you?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so
I
I'm sure we've had many. I mean, and we can touch upon like just what we just went through with the pandemic. But can you guys recall a moment
yeah.
when uncertainty was high and the leader's presence or communication made a real difference for you?
I will tell you, very early in my career, we were at a place where we were going to the office and there was nothing to do, nothing to do. And basically everybody was at the desk working on the resume. Everybody was doing the resume. Nobody knew what was going on. Are we here? Are we done? Is this the end? But we had a great manager who was a great mentor to me, uh, who really kept us there. He kept us focused, and really tell us not to worry. Don't worry, don't worry. This is just we're going through this, but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and eventually things picked up, and or something. We're busy. We're back to developing, traveling around the world, doing all kinds of deployment and rollouts. Yeah, but we had that couple months where we're sitting updating your resume, and for me that was so stressful being a young man, just married recently, starting a new life, and now you're at a job where you don't know if you still have a job tomorrow,
Wow.
whether you're gonna come in, and that, yeah, it was. Yeah, but our manager, he kept us in there and says, no, don't worry, guys, I got you.
Yep.
It's meaningful. It is. Mine's a little different. When my first stint in a leadership role in senior living, the CEO that hired me was retiring, and the board decided they were going to go on a national search for candidates. And they narrowed it down to three candidates that the leadership team got to meet. Uh, Two were really strong, and the other one was very charismatic, but did not have a lot of content. And so we were pretty sure that it wasn't going to be that candidate, but it still worried us because in our leadership team meet, he did say that the last two places he'd been, he brought everybody he'd worked with him.
Wow.
Which, your hearts kind of sink at that point because you feel like you've made a pretty good place for yourself, but now it's uncertain. The other two really strong candidates, one of them said that they had always built teams around them at the new places they went from the people that were there when they arrived, really more comfortable. But what turned out to be was the other strong candidate who said that they had done a composition of both, but generally speaking, they brought people with them. And so that gave us a lot to think about. And the CEO that was retiring was still in place, so we kind of had a heart to heart with her, and she spoke with the board president, and the board president came in and talked to us and say, listen, nothing's going to change. Regardless of who we put in here, nobody's job's on the line. We're not asking for significant changes in this organization. We're just asking for leadership to take us to the next level, which was tremendous. And it was really encouraging, especially from the board president to come in and say that. Now, was it true? Not really, but it really allayed the fears throughout the organization when he came in and spoke that to the leadership team, and then they in turn were able to pass that down through the ranks. So it having that clarity and having that calm presence actually made things better until the new person came in and got their bearings and decided that no, big change is what we need.
Yeah, that's hard. That's putting, putting you in a really bad situation where you're like, damn, I worked I've given my all to this organization, and I've, you know, built a really good reputation, and that's going to change in, just a matter of seconds because this new person is not going to give me an opportunity because they're going to bring their own people.
Yeah, it was tough, but
Yeah.
you know, right there, that allowed me to grow. And it wasn't comfortable growth, but it was certainly growth.
It's
That,
usually
that,
what
that,
happens, when we're put in uncomfortable situation, is that when the moments of growth really happen. It takes us to the next level.
I've been there, new management, and they bring their own team, and they want to do things differently, and it's like, you're used to doing things your way. Uh, yeah, when I was in finance, I went through that a lot. Every time there was a new management change, they came with only the crew.
Hmm. I haven't had the privilege of working in an organization the size of yours, Juan, but that just sounds terrifying.
Yes, no. It's a little nerve-wracking, right? And this is when, when you decide to kind of just, okay, let me just put my head down, keep working, and not make so much noise, which is awesome. Nah, that's great, right? Because it's when you're used to, really producing and really working, and now you gotta, take a step back because you don't want to be noticed too much. Because change in the regime coming, and you gotta, okay, let me just calm down and just go to my desk, get on the keyboard and do what I gotta do.
Well, yeah, that kind of makes me think, though, the uncertainty, in my experience anyway,
Yeah.
well, less of my experience, but I'm kind of extrapolating what it might have been like for you, Juan, is there are times when you felt less like a person and more like a number.
Yep.
And numbers are really easy to make changes to. But if you take the time to learn the people around you and to know them by name and to see what potential value they have and grade them on that instead of just the number, yeah, that can be something that certainly calms the waters.
Yeah, but I have an issue, and I know I have that fault. I'm not a politician. I don't play politics well. I, I'm not gonna laugh at your joke just because you're in charge. I'm not gonna be. This is not me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's not me. If that's what it takes, then I'm not gonna go up the next step because yeah, I'm not gonna be laughing. I'm not gonna follow you. We used to have a guy that used to work, and we used to joke. I says we don't know where he starts, where he begins. Wherever you see the other guy, there he is. Says that wait a second, the tail comes right behind it, and it was true. Every time you see the manager walk by, you wait a minute, and there he will come. I don't work. I let my work speak for me. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm capable of doing. I know what I can deliver. And if that's not enough, then I'm not your guy. If you need a politician, go find somebody on the street to be a politician.
yeah, and that, unfortunately, that happens a lot in many organizations. We see that those people that are really close to the leader, the executive, that they are seen as that they don't have to work as hard, or they can just laugh at their jokes, or follow the leader around the office, and that's all it takes, and that's hard, man. That is really
Yeah,
really hard.
but and those are the ones getting promoted and getting a thing, and meanwhile asking what they deliver. You know, nothing. What have you accomplished? I worked with a guy that was in finance. We worked on a project together, and all his stats was 80%. He never got anything to 100%. Everything, every time we had a status update, 80%. 80%. Every task he got it to it. Not, he never brought anything to 100%. So you really haven't accomplished anything. Because if you get into 80% and then you move into the next task, when are you going to complete the task that you left at 80%? You need to complete that. And he was never getting anything to 100%.
But he was around though.
He was around, yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, I worked most of my life for a German company. I remember being in a meeting with a business, and we're talking go over the status, and again he's back to his 80%. And then I did what nobody was expecting. He switched from English to German. I closed my laptop, I got up and I left. It says meeting is over, I guess, and I walked away. He never again switched to German in a meeting that I was in. If you know that I don't speak the language, that's for me, you want to say something you don't want me to know about.
I have a theory about that, and it's completely unrelated to our current topic, but it seems to be a theme that I've seen in my career where people who never finish anything keep getting promoted. And I think it's because they're not afraid of not finishing, and they'll always start the new shiny project
Yeah.
at a will, at a whim, because their boss asks them to. It doesn't matter if the other thing hasn't been done, or if I start this, I won't have the ability to do the rest. It's Oh yeah, I'm going to keep nodding my head like this and doing what I can because 80% in my wake is good enough to keep me going as long as 100% starts are always on the horizon. And then that 80, that extra 20% of uncompleted work becomes somebody else's problem because I keep
Yeah.
getting promoted.
And then the rest of us got to work on that 20%, which is not the easiest part.
Yeah,
All right. That last 20%, that's the pain. That's where the hard work is.
really where the hard work is. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sorry, I rabbit
No, no,
hole.
no, that
Oh,
was good. That was good. Remember, it's our podcast. We go whatever way we want to. There's no set structure. I mean, once we get into a topic and if we need to divert, then we will because it's a good, healthy conversation because it's real, and that's why we're doing this. We want people to be able to see the practicality of being a leader, not just speaking on theory.
The only thing I'd add is that if anybody's listening to this that doesn't know us, please don't take that as career advice because that's not a reputation you really want following you around.
Yeah,
Be somebody who both starts and finishes.
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're just giving you all the audience some of our experiences so that you know what you are going to see. And I'm sure some people that are listening are laughing because they can probably point out who those
yeah.
people are in their
Who the 80?
organization.
Who the 80%? They're gonna go to the work tomorrow and they're gonna go. That's an 80% guy.
Yeah,
That's an 80% guy. Here's another 80% guy.
I love it. I think we're gonna use that on the LinkedIn post, the 80% guy. As a matter of fact, let me write this down so I don't forget.
Yeah.
80 percenters.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so one of the things that for me that came to mind when we first started the conversation is that 'cause I know because people have told me this and helped me grow as a leader is that people don't expect us as leaders to predict the future or be perfect. They really don't. They expect leaders to create the environment of stability in uncertain times, even when the future is unclear. I know Juan talked about this in his young role. I think that was in the banking industry, right?
Yeah. That
Juan?
was in bank. Yeah.
Yeah. I had that early in my career where we were going through a change in reimbursement, and it was going from free for all pretty much in the 90s to early 2000s. We got really stringent, so there had to be some changes. And the company that I worked for waited until like the last minute, and then they just wanted to, they didn't want to. They did it, lay off 40, 50 people, like 2 days before Christmas.
Thanks.
That's hard. I was like, you know what? I'll volunteer as as the person I'll be one of those 40, 50 people because they wanted me to be the one telling these people that, you no longer have a job. Like I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I,
I'll be
I
your
had a
tutor.
manager who tried that with me also
Yeah,
for Christmas. Let
yeah.
go of somebody says, I've never let go of anybody. He don't work for me. If you want to let him go here at Christmas, be my guest. You go ahead and do it. I'm not doing it.
No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So, and I left. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not coming back. The next day, my boss was calling me. He's like, where are you? I'm like, I told you I was going to be one of the 40, 50 people. I wasn't going to do it. They did it. The corporate office had to come in and do it. And then, I continued working for that organization, but I was like, that's just not a good way to do business, man.
Uh,
That's a leadership trait that seems to be missing even still, and that's integrity.
Yeah.
That's just being true to what you know is right and being willing to suffer the slings and arrows of taking that stance. So
Mhm. Yeah. So I was like, it's a good learning lesson, but I wasn't going to do it, and I didn't do it. I've been blessed with I guess having that mental fortitude to be able to, do what's right and stand by what's right. It burned me many of times, but I will continue to do it
Right.
because that's who I am.
Yeah, the guy, he was let go eventually, but after the holidays. And then he's blaming me that he was let go because of my fault. I said, if I would have known that, I would have let you go in December where they wanted to let you go.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's a good one right there.
Yeah, if I would have known he was going to be like that, I said, Dad, I would have done it myself then.
Yeah,
You're going to blame me anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
that's hilarious. Well, let's go into our last question here of discussion. What helps teams remain confident when circumstances around them are changing?
I think yeah, I said it at the beginning, right? Transparency, keeping the team informed. Especially when there's changes going around, especially in an organization when there's organization changes going around. It's always to try to communicate as much as possible because always there are things that you can't communicate as a manager.
Yes,
Uh,
obviously.
but as much as you can, to keep the team in a calm, right? And still delivering, right? Because we still have to, whatever we're doing, especially me in the IT, we still need to produce, we still need to support our business. So, if we in an environment where it's becomes hostile, then you're not able to give the business the proper support because people are now in a defensive move. No, I don't want to do this because if I do something wrong, then I'll be the first one. Uh, and I'm gonna. I remember one time, and this is a classic quote from a friend of mine, uh, Dave, and he came to me once. Yeah, we were in an environment it wasn't it was a little hostile, and we didn't know what was going on. And he comes and asks me, "Tell me the truth. Am I on the list? Is there a list?" I goes, "Dave, there's no list. But don't worry, you're not in the top 10."
That's awesome.
There's no list, but you're not in the top 10. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's memorable right there.
I love it. I'm gonna use that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
your point of consistent communication goes a long ways for sure.
no
For sure.
question. But I think on top of that, it's making sure that your team knows that you're there to support them.
Yes.
We talked about creating the environment, the positive environment,
Mhm.
the environment of stability, but knowing when your people know that you will take care of them to the best of your ability, that gives them a tremendous amount of comfort
Yes.
and helps keep them confident in their roles. And it's not just supporting, but it's giving that critical feedback that they may need to improve themselves. Because it's not all, rainbows and sunshine. There are clouds on the horizon,
Mhm.
and your attitude through all of this may be negative, and I'm going to have to tell you about that. You just have to make sure that you understand that I'm doing it because I want you to be better, and I'm trying to support you through that feedback.
Yeah. That,
Nowadays, when you tell them, don't need to worry about it, but it wouldn't hurt if you learn AI.
you might want to. Um, One of the things that comes to mind is having predictable leadership behaviors. So when you're speaking, whether it is uncertain times or prosperous times, as a leader, when you speak, when you're in meetings, all eyes are on you, right? So they look at you, your mannerisms, your tone. If you are like some of us that like to joke around, if you're cracking a joke, if you're making fun of yourself, if you're predictable in those leadership behaviors, that sets a tone that people will feel that you are guiding them the right way, whether it is a hard time or not. And you get to build that trust. You get to bank those dollars uh, because you're consistent. Your behavior is predictable, whether it is a great day or not. And the more that as leaders we're able to do that and have that emotional regulation, and you're not, one day incredibly happy, the next day doomsday, uh, then you're able to lean on that every so often, and people will follow that. They will, because they know that you're steady, and they want that from their leaders. They don't want someone that is volatile.
Now that stability is super important. Even if your normal is a little wacky, as
Mhm.
long as your wacky stays normal,
Yeah,
they
if you're
covered.
predictable, they know what they're going to get from you. When people know what they're going to get from you, guess what? That's who they're going to want to follow. They don't want to follow the leader that it's on that emotional roller coaster. Today we're
Dr.
great.
Jekyll,
Okay,
Mr. Hyde.
great. Oh
Yeah.
my God, today the world is gonna end. No, that's hard. Yeah, and you're going to attract the wrong people in your team. And the right people are going to go somewhere else where they know that they know what, for the most part, what they're going to get on a day-to-day basis from their leader.
I'm quite sure that if anyone that I work with were to sit down together and compare notes, it's all going to be the same. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm the same person. I like to keep things fluid. I like to keep things I like to crack my jokes. I do it all the time, even when I'm teaching, uh, because it keeps people motivated and it keeps it real too, right? And it's not all about business. We're here to do this and this and this and this is what you got to do. Nah,
Hmm.
everybody's relaxed, we get a lot done. I
But
was
you
looking
get
at a
more
list of
done.
everything that I did last year, and I was like, damn, I did all of that last year. That's a lot.
Mhm.
Well, and I think that there's people out there that think leadership is a persona that you have to put on when you go to work, and that's not the case. That is not authentic. That's not authentic. It's
Nope.
not real. You're not a stage performer.
Nope.
You're not there to put on a show. You're there to lead people, and if you don't take that serious enough to be your own person, then Lord have mercy, there's just so many pitfalls that are just right there in your path.
Mhm.
The days of wearing a three-piece suits are over. Right? Everybody had that image, Maybe I mean wears a three-piece suit, he got kind of serious.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
I do. I wear my, that's just part, but that's my upbringing. So for me, like, I don't have to. In the organization I work for, it's a big organization, and they don't believe in suits and whatever. I told them, well, I do. That's who I am, and I'm not going to change this for anybody. That's who I am. I wear my bow tie or my regular tie every day. I mean, that's
the
just.
day I lost my tie, now I struggle when I got to put a tie on. Where are they? I have a huge collection of ties, but uh, I started working where we were casual. We were
Mhm.
IT, so we were very casual. Jeans and t-shirt, and then we'll switch into the suit era. And I remember this is, as I went through so much as being a young man working, early 20s of all the stuff that I went through. And I remember that, the guys used to make fun of me the days we had to wear a suit because, we had a guest coming in, you got to wear a suit. And I had this suit that I had to wear. Obviously, it was not a business suit. And the guys used to call it the Ricky Ricardo suit. Here comes Juan with his Ricky Ricardo suit because I had my shoulder pads and everything,
Oh
ready to pick
boy.
the conga. But I was a young boy just starting to work. I didn't have the blue suit or the black suit. I had my Ricky Ricardo suit.
Well, listen, you got to start somewhere, but you
Right.
were you were dressed for success. But yeah, that for me, that's just has always been like my upbringing was that way that you dressed up for your role. And I'm always going to be like that. If I'm in an executive role, that's just what I'm going to do.
As they say, don't dress up for the job you have, but dress up for the job you want.
Yep.
There's that. Yeah.
Big words right there.
Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
the first time I saw Amin in a casual setting after we started working together, I had to take a double take. What, you wear jeans and a t-shirt? Come on now. Yeah, well, when I'm not at work,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
just figured he'd be out mowing the lawn in his three-piece and his bow tie.
that's hilarious right there. That is funny. That's a true story right there. All right. Well, let's do final takes. Go ahead, Mr. 80% guy.
Well, what can we say? I mean, that we have covered a lot. I mean, and even nowadays, and even in today's world, right, we're very uncertain what's going to happen tomorrow. There's so much going on, whether if you're into, politics or whatever, but we're not going to bring the pot, but that's part of it, right? Because that brings such a twist into things, where I'm planning to travel for business. Now I got to reroute my flight because airspace is closed. So it's very uncertain everything that's going on around. But what I would say, stay focused. Know exactly what it is that you want in life, and stay focused, stay humble. And just keep moving forward. The road might be crooked, but just keep going.
Yep.
Just don't go off the edge. If you think you're going to go off the edge, ping us, send us a message, post a message on the video. Somebody will reach out to you. We're here to not to share our knowledge, but to also support the young minds or the next generation of managers that uh, hopefully, will at least if they take 20% of what we're saying, we'll leave the 80%. Let's take 20% and take it with you.
Oh man, how do we Tad, how do you follow that up?
Oh man, that's gonna be a struggle, but I'm gonna take a different tack. I think that for me in uncertain times that I can draw a tremendous amount of comfort and stability from my experiences. But then I have to be real and say that a lot of my experiences where I had that sense of calm didn't come from me. It came from faith. And the Bible says, don't work for man, work for God. And I believe that to be the truth. And as long as you're doing that, you're where you're supposed to be for as long as you're supposed to be, and then you'll be the next place you're supposed to be. And if you walk around with that type of confidence and that knowledge and faith, people will see that, and that will be a calming force in uncertain times.
I love that. Great words. Great words. And way to bring it home. Uh, Uncertainty will always be part of leadership. It will always be part of our personal lives too. That's not something that you can get away from. Circumstances will change. Markets will shift, as we know. Business world is ever changing. And the future rarely unfolds exactly as we expect, or even close to what we expect. But leadership is measured by how we guide others through it. What I mentioned earlier, just that consistency, making sure that people know what to expect from you, good times or bad times. When leaders show steadiness, communication, being honest, uh, but also remaining grounded in purpose. I think one of the biggest things as a leader we should have is purpose. What's the purpose of why am I doing this? And if we are able to communicate that purpose, man, you're gonna win a lot of hearts. Um, Also, leaders need to create the stability, especially in uncertain times, so that you can have people following you. And sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can simply say is, We're moving forward together. Whether it's uncertain times or not, this is our path forward. We're doing this together. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to recording a new one here soon. And hopefully you guys get to listen to the entire podcast and give comment 80% guy if you have that in your organization. Have a good one, everyone.
Hi,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.